From Consultant in Your Pocket, it is the What's New in Domino 9, Traveler 9, and Notes 9 from Gabrielle Davis, Chris Miller, and Paul Mooney. Please listen along and subscribe to YouTube if you want to follow all the episodes.
It is time once again for us to have another webcast about what's new coming up in Domino and Lotus and everything else in the world. This is our third or fourth one. I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues once again, Gabriella Davis and Paul Mooney. Housekeeping first, and then we'll get right into it. But first, we should say hello to Gab, since I have Turtle Partnership up on the site.
Hello.
Hello, she's there. So turtlepartnership.com for everybody to find information on Gab. And then next up, we have Mr. Mooney.
Hello.
Hello, he is there as well. So pmooney.net is where you can find him, and also bluewave.ie for the business side of things. But he has a good video up from his review of BLUG as well. And myself, easy enough to find, Connectory, as everybody knows, connectory.com. So what do we have? Real quick, the webcast will be recorded. It'll be on Consultant in Your Pocket as usual. All the replays are there if you need them. They're also a playlist now that is on YouTube. I totally went blank there on YouTube. I want to say thanks to everybody. Some of these videos are now getting into like the 5,000, 6,000 views. We moved from Mevio, where we had tons of content, but they closed. So we moved all the content back to YouTube. But there is a playlist you can subscribe to keep up if you just want to use YouTube, that one as well. So upcoming events. IMLUG is in May 6th and 7th. We still have seats available, not a lot, but we do have seats open. It's May 6th and 7th. The Tack-It-On is May 8th. The event sessions are up, speakers are up, everything's there. The agenda will be live next week. And then Admin 2013. Gab, you're at this one too, right? Gab's not saying anything now, but that's
no, I am. Yes, Gab was putting herself on mute, but yes, I am at View 2013, doing lots of presentations on Traveler and connections.
Excellent. You have like 4 or 5 again, so you can find us there in what is it, April 17th? I don't want to screw this up.
16th, 17th, 18th, I believe.
Okay, and then there's a Jumpstart Day the day before.
No, 17th, 18th, 19th. Sorry.
17th through 19th with the Jumpstart on the 16th is what it is. It's right on the screen in front of us if I would have looked.
Oh.
17th and 19th with Jumpstarts on the 16th. And then Mr. Mooney has launched MoBug, the mobile user group. That will be taking place later this year. Paul, you want to tell them anything about this?
Yeah, it's going to be taking place on 9th of September in London in the UK. It is our first go at running a mobile-orientated user group. No product, no vendor specific. All vendors welcome, all products welcome, and it's going to be covering architectural, development, and then managerial and strategic aspects purely based on mobility. It's a one-day event that we're planning to kick off and hopefully do more of them as we grow. We're going to see how it goes.
Is it free?
It is free to attend, and there is sponsorship. It will be calling for abstracts soon for speakers, and we are open to take bids from sponsors.
Right. IMLUG is free for everybody as well. The View admin has a 3-day charge for that one, and MoBug is free. So you guys have plenty of stuff to do all across the world, so there's no excuses why you're not somewhere. So let's get this out of the way, and let us get started with all the what's new stuff. We have plenty of content to cover, definitely. So we're going to run through the slides. In the right-hand side, I should tell you, of your screen, you have the ability to ask questions. You have the ability to give us feedback as we go along. We will be checking the chat, but if you do have questions, use the question window that's on the right-hand side. That allows us to log it, to save it for later. We can export it and put it into the show notes and things like that. So please use the questions area, but we do see the chat as well. And we have a couple polls as we go along. We made 2 of them just about when people are upgrading and things like that. So if you guys are ready, I am ready to go. Are you guys, you two, both ready to go? Move this out of my way. And
I'm ready.
I'm ready, so let's see.
Yep, ready to go.
I need to put this in play mode in a minute, but we'll worry about it later. Okay, so improvements. Who is up first? Gab, are you first?
Paul.
Paul is first. It was a good guess. Paul is up first. So, Paul, go ahead. You'll take us through the first part.
Well, take us through on the server side, just to kind of a summary things. One of the main emphasis parts of Domino 9 is TCO, and one of the main ways we're trying to do that is to make standard management easier. So the database management tool is a tool you can run against mail files, NSFs, which is like a utility that will run all of the smart things that you should run against databases to keep them all tip-top. Build the appropriate view indexes, run the right level of compaction, run the right type of fix-up, and it's quite a simple utility, and it is one that will become very popular from a help desk operational perspective. Additionally to that, we'll get into it a little later on, you've got the new QoS probe, which is a server-side monitoring tool that's now going to be built in. There's been plenty of third-party products that have done this type of thing over the years, but this is going to monitor the Domino server for performance, for freezes, and then take actions for you to actually, potentially restart the server or alert and kind of deal with the server and try and make sure it behaves better. We're going to get into that a little bit later on. Also the introduction of SAML 2 support, which is a new feature in this level on Domino, so it's going to allow cross-site support for authentication. And then on the security side with SHA-2 support, and then with the introduction of IHS, the IBM HTTP server, we're going to have new levels of security, including much improved TLS support for HTTP traffic, and you'll be able to put in the front of an IBM HTTP server in front of Domino. And then the OAuth credential store, which I know you've spoken about as well, Mr. Miller, to allow cross-authentication into external products or public-facing products as well.
And I've just written another 40 pages on that, so I'm all about the suffering inside of that. I don't think it was later in our set. We should real quick. We want to talk about that IBM HTTP server that's going to be included. I don't think we have a slide directly on that later on. I remember.
Okay, it is basic support where you can front-end a Domino HTTP server with an IHS server. The IHS server will kind of act like a proxy, directing the traffic to the Domino HTTP server as required. This could be indicative of where things are going to go, where it's going to be much tighter integration with IHS fronting on Domino. So you'll be able to do configurations on IHS just specifically to interact with the Domino HTTP engine, the Domino server itself. And you'll be able to do a lot more types of advanced configuration, like dedicated TLS configurations. Anyone who's done TLS in Domino in the past would know it's relatively limited. It does work, but it is a bit tricky and a bit limited in what it can configure and do. Fronting it with IHS means that you have the advantage of a very robust, modern Apache-based HTTP server. You have to run all the configurations based off that. So I think that's only the beginning of something. I think that's going to continue on and going to become a lot more advanced as it goes along.
And it's running on the same physical box. I know that was a question that I've heard before, and people don't realize that this is just a plugin that basically redirects traffic and puts it back to you. And I'm not, people were like, well, why would I do that? Why would I put it in? But with the expansibility and some of the stuff they're going to do, it's going to become more important and apparent of why you would do something like that.
Yeah, I really do think this is just the first step. I do think it's going to go a lot further and a long way. Do keep in mind that the Domino HTTP server, although it's been improved, it is a version of Apache from quite a while ago. IHS is much more modern, updated much more frequently. So if you go to more advanced HTTP deployments and like leverage Domino and XPages and future technologies, IHS in the front may turn out to be quite a good thing as opposed to an added level of complexity.
Exactly. Now, we do have a question that shows... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Gab.
I was going to say, it is consistent because the other collaboration products use IHS as a front end to a large degree. So if you're using connections or you're using Portal, you'll be getting involved with IHS administration as well.
Yeah, I really do think that's one of the underlying reasons behind the whole thing is as you go down that road, it may be a lot nicer as the IBM collaboration services all get fronted by a consistent HTTP stack. I think that could work out quite well. And it also, from the day-to-day administrator's perspective, it will get you more familiar with a different type of HTTP server that can be used to do many, many different things.
Right. We have a question that did come in from one of our lovely, we know who this is. TLS doesn't work for anything other than mail, does it? It doesn't work for web services in 8.5.
I've configured it many times for mail. I don't think it works for web services.
Right.
I think specifically mail protocols.
Yeah.
Yeah, TLS is a wonderful thing for it there. Okay. Are we good with this slide? Ready for the next one?
Well, actually, no, there's one last point in that. It is the new utility that they brought out, which is Exchange Migration Utility. Funnily enough, there are sites that are, looking at mail as a platform. There's not as many migrations happening now as there were a couple of years ago in any direction, but IBM have brought out a newer migration utility to actually migrate people off Exchange and into Domino. Ironically enough, when I was giving an ND9 presentation 2 days ago, about a quarter of the people in Blue Technology use Google Apps, another, say about a third of them use Notes now, and the rest of them are using Exchange or Exchange in the cloud. And after showing them Notes 9, I'm now having a small revolt in Blue Wave where a number of people now want to switch back to actually using the Notes 9 Mail client.
Exactly. And we've seen that now. And I'm very curious about this, the Exchange migration utility that they put in, how robust it is yet. I haven't had a chance to do any testing on it at all. Have either of you tried anything?
No.
No, I haven't had a business need to do it yet.
Right. I just haven't had time to even try doing it at this point. So I'm just curious to see how robust it'll be and how well it interacts and integrity, of the messages and the content.
And calendaring especially, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The hotspot is calendaring.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We ready for the next one?
I am.
All right. Okay. You know what? While you're doing that, Paul, I'm going to send out the poll, and because I'm curious about this, let's ask everybody. So the poll's open right now. So while they're viewing the poll, while you can talk to them about Traveler 9, we're asking them, when they plan on upgrading to 9 when you give them the new stuff. So you can start telling them about it while the poll's running real quick. Wow. Look at the numbers already. 45% already are saying in the next 2 months.
Well, actually, personal.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Personal points. Don't try and talk while I have hit the mute switch. I've been talking away there and realized that nobody was hearing me.
Right.
Traveler 9 is possibly the main driving factor for any of my customers to be looking at Domino 9 yet. It's not too much of an enhancement on top of the lines of UP1 or UP2 in Traveler in the 8.5 stack, but it does bring in additional support enhancements, and that's the main reason why people want to go to it. So, for example, you've got Windows Phone support now over the ActiveSync stack. You have a Windows RT and Pro tablet support, but you also have BlackBerry 10 device support. So I've had a number of calls with customers about this already, where we have customers looking at, we have people who've walked in with BlackBerry 10 devices. We need to go up to BES 10 to support that. And we're saying, well, as an alternative, you can just connect your BES 10 devices directly over the ActiveSync protocol to Traveler. You do lose some of the security and fidelity that comes with BlackBerry 10, but you do get all of the, they get messaging, they get all the functionality that they need to do their job.
Certainly for small businesses, we're recommending using BlackBerry 10 against Traveler, partly because as well you can't have a single BlackBerry server that supports both pre-version 7 devices and post-version 7 devices. You need to be running dual BlackBerry infrastructures. So Traveler takes out the need for you to do that, and for many businesses, that's an overhead they can actually take away.
Amazingly enough, a very large customer of ours is looking at this and now looking to knock up beyond BES 5, and new devices coming in are actually getting connected to their highly available Traveler pool, just to ease complexity. They're in a proof of concept on that at the moment. So they've already done POC deployments of Traveler 9. That was in the last 24 hours, and they're starting to connect devices to it.
I'm doing one today.
Yeah, you will see them, and this also boils back to a standard recommendation that myself and Gab have given over the past, 3 years since we started talking quite a lot about Traveler, or maybe 4 years since we started doing show and tell. Having your Traveler deployments put in a separate domain to your Domino deployment makes upgrades a lot easier. If you are a large customer, an enterprise level customer, and you say, well, God, we really need Windows Phone support, so we need to upgrade to Traveler 9, you also obviously need to upgrade your Traveler server to Domino 9. If the server is in the same domain as the rest of the environment, going up to Domino 9 means you have to check for impact against the directory replicating around all of your other production servers or application servers. So having it in a separate domain with its own directory environment means that you can bring your Traveler environment up much more frequently without causing too much of an impact on your production site.
All right, I'll do the poll thing, then let's answer some of the questions that came in real quick. So that way they can get back to seeing the slide. So basically 40% say they're going to do in the next 2 months, with 24 saying in the next 6 months. One person said they wanted to change their vote in the question area, but 9% said they've already upgraded. So let's hide the poll. Now let's go back so now they can see the screen. 2 questions came in. One says, is Traveler 9 already gold release state or still beta?
Gold.
Oh, well, I know, just so everyone can hear it and see it. And the last one, is a little bit better is, are you saying that no BES servers, only Traveler to support BB10 devices, which we should clarify?
No, if you want to use the ActiveSync protocol on a BlackBerry 10 device, it can use, you can go in and buy a BlackBerry Z10 right now, and it will connect over ActiveSync to Traveler. If you want to use the BES enterprise connectivity over port 3101, what you do is you will have to go and install a BES 10 environment and connect your BES 10 device to that BES 10 server. And ironically enough, the BES 10 server will be talking to the Domino servers over ActiveSync.
Yep.
So you will still need a Traveler server.
If the question is, can you do without a BES 10 server if you've got BES 10 devices, then absolutely you can.
Mm-hmm.
You lose some of the policy, as Paul said, some of the policy features and some of the advanced BES features, but you can actually take the BES server out of the equation if you're prepared to compromise on that.
Just a good point. You can still do a remote wipe. Myself and Gav were looking at it earlier on today. Yeah. We can remote wipe a BES 10 device.
Yes.
From Traveler.
And I'd like to apologize to the person whose device we wiped.
Yeah. So we should, and we're not going to get deep into BES itself, but people should know the other piece of the puzzle is that ActiveSync versus the BES management side and encryption side too. So running the BES 10 server gives you that full BES capability, the full encryption stack, everything else that you get from BlackBerry and you've known, and then running it straight over ActiveSync, you can do your SSL, but they should be aware there are two different things with policy management as well.
Absolutely. And it is horses for courses. If you want to reduce complexity and you are willing to forgo some of the extreme customization that comes with BES, ActiveSync and Traveler is a very viable alternative. But if you are a heavy-orientated security shop with heavy auditing and want all those levels of multiple policies and features, obviously the BlackBerry is much more robust.
And BES 10 is now throwing a wrench in the works with providing some management support for Androids and others.
Yes.
So good luck. We had another question, does Traveler 9 include upgrade pack 1 and 2?
It's native, it's built in. It's not an upgrade pack. So
well, they want to make sure from the previous release is what they're saying.
No, I totally get where that question comes from because sometimes IBM do like to confuse us with versioning.
And someone wants us to start a Connections 101, a Traveler 101 site. Apparently, can we write a post or proof of concept on Traveler 9 environments that have Traveler servers? So someone wants to know if we can do that.
I've actually got a few blog posts already drafted on Traveler 9, which I'll put up. But myself and Gab could talk about doing a Traveler 101. It's not. It wouldn't be that complicated,
I've already volunteered you, Paul. You're okay.
Oh, good. Okay.
I think it goes further than that. Then we'll keep going to the slides. Is that we're also looking at things like they want to know about, like you said, the upgrades, multiple directories. So I think we should talk about that.
Yeah. Traveler is. It's amazing. Like we're talking about Notes and Domino 9, and I just knew that the Traveler slide would be the one where we'd spend quite a bit of time.
Okay.
But Traveler is. There is no non-critical deployment of Traveler. The minute you deploy Traveler, 20 minutes after the first important person has it on his device, it's critical. And you have to respect it when you're actually installing it that way. So possibly a number of slides or maybe a dedicated site on how to do it properly, how to configure it down to the directory level, how to configure lookups. Yeah, and maybe that's worth doing.
I'll just put you out, we're on slide 4 of 19.
Yeah, we're fine. We're 20. So as everybody knows, and Gab made a note in the side chat. Yes, when the polls are live, the slide itself is blocked. I shared it real quick, and then once I close the poll down, we're back to the slide set. So we'll move on.
I already sent that privately to you. That's okay.
No. I want everyone to understand that because I want everyone to understand how the flow works. When we do the poll, it does block the presentation for a minute. It actually warns me on the screen when I launch the poll, but I didn't say that to everybody. So off we go. No, so everyone knew. So XPage.
Mm-hmm.
Who was this one? Was this Gab? Because none of us are developers.
No, Paul's going to cover this section, then I start the next section.
Okay, thank goodness.
My turn. You're good.
Oh, I can hear the laughing already. Well, I'm actually getting a small rash while I start to talk about this.
I'm itching.
There are a number of XPage enhancements, obviously, that come with Domino 9, and what we wanted to do is just put a slide in there to say, look, we accept the fact that there may be developers on the call, maybe people are interested overall, but you have a server-side JavaScript debugger. The far increased, our developers are much more interested in the hover help and Dojo 1.81 support. which far improves their support for mobile applications. There's a new CK editor for rich text editors, 3.6.5, and then distinct improvements in client-side XPage application performance.
Excellent. Now, we will, if anyone has interest, please send me a note, events@consultinginyourpocket.com. I'll put it in the chat area. But send a note in if you do have an interest in having one that's on what's new in the developer side. And we'll move on. And we have a attendee that's a little bit smart that says 19 slides, and of course, there's only one for development. But that's too bad. This is not an
I really think you should be grateful. Yeah, if there's one slide is better. That's 5% of our slides are like about development. That's good.
Exactly.
And it's only there so we can point to what causes all the problems.
And then we just had someone say we could do one just for development. Yes, that's what we're going to think about. So, All right, off we go. Moving along. You ready, Gab?
I'm ready.
I am clicking. There we go.
Go. Okay, so the new Notes browser experience, which is the plugin for browser, it's about, I think, Paul's about 150 meg. It actually installs when you run it.
There's two versions. There's a light and a standard. Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about that in a second. Let the Gab finish the page, and let's talk about this plugin.
Okay. The idea behind it is basically any Notes application can be run inside a browser with no changes and will look as though you're running it through the Notes client. It means that you can avoid deploying a Notes client if you want to still use the Notes application. It actually embeds the Notes client on the page. It works Windows only, Firefox and IE. And the enhanced XPage template, I don't know that much about. Paul?
Paul went on mute.
Oh,
Sorry, just 1 second, I'm muting. From the browser experience, no, I'm here. From the browser side, there are a number of enhanced XPage templates in 9. That's the only reason I put a bullet point in there. Some of the templates that come out of the box with Notes have been improved to take leverage of the Domino 9 XPage features.
Sorry.
Go on.
It's very cool. We were talking about it earlier, and you have to be using ID Vault, but you get the same login as you would if you were doing a Notes client. So you have to still put in your password that's tied to your ID, even though you're in the browser. And the ugliest, oldest Notes apps that you can dig out will render in the plugin in the browser without any changes. So if you haven't looked at it, it's really something you want to put on your agenda to look at, because there are places where the full Notes client, especially now if you look at iNotes and the embedded experience of iNotes, if you combine that with the Notes browser plugin, you've got a very nice solution for clients where you might want to deploy full Notes.
So we were noted on the side that it's team room and discussions only, I believe, for that enhancement.
Oh, for the X pages.
Yep. So we're going to talk about this plugin real quick. So it does install with the client now. It's part of the install pack. So you can actually, click the button to have it go. Why you would run it? Still trying to figure out. So if you haven't seen it yet for some reason, there's some demos online. But it is basically the old Notes basic client. That's what it is. And it launches it in a framework. So it's a wrapper, an XPI wrapper that launches inside of it. The functionality is going to be what you need it for, because keep in mind, anytime a user clicks something inside of this, and they're in this Notes client interface, it's actually going to launch them into iNotes. So they're not going to get their Notes mail inside of it from this browser interface or plugin. They're going to launch into iNotes. So you have this discrepancy between this beautiful iNotes interface and then the basic client interface. Do either of you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think it's going to suit certain customer sites already. I've been demoing this at quite a few customer sites. It's going to suit a few of them for their needs. The new iNotes interface is excellent. It is a very, very pretty browser experience. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of really crappy old Notes 4, Notes 3 apps knocking around.
And why aren't they just running Notes? Because it is
a lot of
Notes
sites
client.
that don't want to. There's a lot of sites that don't want to have to do the management of Notes client. Like there's no location documents. There's none of the most basic core things that can go wrong in a Notes client and a supporting of a Notes client. It's just a plugin.
Well, wait, I'm going to disagree. There is a location document. There is a connectivity document.
I
I shouldn't say location. There's connection documents, because keep in mind it's building a local data directory type thing, because the ID vault supplying the ID file, right? When it launches it, You're still doing a connection to a Notes server via NRPC. It is not HTTP, it's NRPC. So it does store this locally inside of a directory path of the local user. So it is the Notes client.
Yeah,
So,
no, it is actually the core code. It's the C code with everything stripped out of it that it can be.
yeah.
But it's even from our demos and from our kind of test installations on site, where people don't want to have to go and manage the client level install, as it were, and migrations and rebuilds and moves. They just deploy the plugin with the browser. They're going to identify a saving from client-side management.
Right.
FTE time.
There's the win. So there's the winner. So that's why we had to play devil's advocate so everyone understands what you're getting with this. Is Paul nailed it? Is you're removing that install problem and just pushing it out as a extension or plugin to the browser side, but it's still the Notes client in essence, because you do still have some policy control. They do still have the Notes ID file, so that runs with it has to run with the ID vault. So everyone should know the ID vault needs to be configured and running as well. I think it's a great thing, but there's also the mail side. If you're looking at this as a solution for, I can just now deploy it via the web, but they still use their old Notes mail, that won't happen.
Yeah.
So good. If you guys, I've deployed it here a couple times, in testing different machines and stuff, and it's interesting they now have made it part of the install pack. So it's built in, so you could run either one now. When you install Notes 9, you could actually run the browser plugin version.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I think management of the Notes client is a significant pain point for customers and help desks. And if this can help with that, this environment, I think it's going to make I think it's a very smart solution.
As a use case for this, specifically, we have a 2,000 user site that Blue Wave is heavily involved with and manages. And we've done an audit in their environment to find out what Notes applications, they use Notes for mail and apps. And we found all the Notes applications that they use heavily, and they're all being modernized and being given, they're being given budget to work in a browser via XPages and non-XPages applications. They're happy with the iNotes experience, and they're now having serious discussions saying, well, why don't we just go with the plugin for the really older Notes apps and go with a browser-based experience for everything.
And this is really powerful for Citrix too.
Well, yes. This is actually a Citrix house. So they get to remove the overhead of the Notes client on their Citrix environment and just go with a plugin in the browser.
Excellent. All right, are we ready? Are we moving on this one still, or do we need another slide?
No, I'm good.
For those that joined late, I know we've had a bunch of people come in late. I've gotten some emails. I've made sure they got in. If you have any questions, please put it in the questions area on the right side of your screen. We can see the list, and we'll be able to respond to it, in the next minute or so or on the fly. So please remember to do that. Someone, of course, brought up the old GBS product transformer, but we'll skip that. Paul, we skipped one thing. When you first talked about Traveler on the last slide, we didn't answer it, and it's way at the top of the question. Has either of you done, and I haven't, done a deployment of Traveler on OpenSUSE 12.3?
No. I do know one customer site who is chomping at the bait now to get it out on an iBox, but I haven't done a Traveler install on OpenSUSE.
Okay, just want to make sure we covered all those. So I went back up. That was one we missed. All right, next slide we go. Yeah.
Okay. The new QoS, Quality of Service feature, the idea behind QoS is it's going to monitor the health and performance of the Domino server. So it looks at whether the Domino server is hung, whether the Domino server tasks are hung, whether there are any reports of running out of memory or running out of threads. What it does is if it hits any of the triggers it has set, it restarts Domino. And it does a shutdown of Domino. If Domino is shutting down and it hangs during a shutdown, it will actually trigger a clean shutdown and a clean up and a restart. So the whole QoS service is actually managed outside of Domino using INI files, the Notes INI and dcontroller INI. Dcontroller INI is created when you run Domino using the Java controller. So QoS only works if you're running using the Java controller. So you run the server with the -jc command, and that starts the Java controller, runs Domino, creates the dcontroller INI file. We can go to the next slide.
Okay. Oh, wow, you were quick. We'll probably come back to that one. Go ahead.
Yeah. So to enable it, you add an INI setting in the dcontroller called QoS_enable = 1. And then we have a bunch of settings in the Notes INI file that we can control. If we don't put them in the Notes INI file, they default. So the probe interval is obviously how often the Domino server actually queries its own health and status, and that defaults to 1 minute. The probe timeout is how long it will wait for a response before it determines that the server is hung or unresponsive. And then we have, I've repeated the word shutdown timeout twice, we have the shutdown timeout, which is if the server is shutting down, how long before the QoS service decides that the shutdown is hung and restarts. And the apps timeout, I think, is both quite interesting and a bit worrying, which is how long will the server decide an app is hung if it generates a thread or starts doing something and doesn't respond. And that defaults to 10 minutes. So if you have an app running on the server that starts doing something and then doesn't progress for 10 minutes, the QoS service will shut it down. So, and that's because that's a configurable setting and it's configurable by administrators. I could see circumstances where people change apps timeout to something shorter and suddenly developers are told your application is crashing the server, which it's not doing, it's just taking longer than the QoS service thinks is appropriate. So I think it's very interesting. If we go to the next slide, Chris.
And there we go. Sorry. Yep.
Cool. So, potential problems, yes. Yeah, this is like Paul's nemesis. The QoS service doesn't support passwords or server IDs because when it restarts, it's going to hang waiting for a password. So if you have a password on a server ID, you can't use the QoS. Otherwise, when it restarts the server won't come back up.
5 years of pleading with people at Lotus here to put passwords on server IDs, threatening to execute puppies and bunny rabbits.
Turn them off.
And then they bring out a feature that will actually stop it from working if there's a password on an ID file.
It's really disappointing. I mean, I understand because what they must be doing is closing and restarting the server from a level lower than the restart function. So they must be essentially, as Paul said earlier, doing a kill, terminating the services. But it's not a good solution.
It's a cache clear. So that's probably, so the restart requirement and the fault recovery caches server ID passwords. But yeah, just like you were saying, Gab, it's painful if out of the box you want people to have that level to enable all these features, and then from a security perspective you want passwords and ID files, and then this happens.
I'd like to see maybe on a future release the ability to store an encrypted version of the server password in a document on the file system that this could get at. There has to be a way to allow this to get at a server password. But yeah, it's not there now. My other concern about QoS, although I think it's really clever, is the timeouts being too low. Everyone's environment is different. IBM have to set defaults because if they don't, and you don't set anything in your INI file, then it simply won't work. But it's very easy to enable. It needs some thinking about in terms of setting the timeouts and what you want. It's like developers who write agents and want them scheduled every minute. Sometimes it's not a great idea to have a short timescale on something like that. So that's something as an administrator I think very carefully about. Don't enable QoS on servers without transaction logging. Probably goes without saying, but if you enable QoS and QoS crashes down the server and brings it back up, you don't want it consistency checking all the databases that were open when it closed the server down. It's going to close it down as cleanly as it can, but you don't want databases to be consistency checked when it comes back up, because then your mail won't be delivered and it will back up, and it's just not a good solution. I mean, having Domino running nowadays without transaction logging isn't a good solution anyway, but certainly I wouldn't deploy QoS without transaction logging on the server. Why does Ray think, is it that we can't have a password on the server ID?
Yeah, I think that was for that someone said you can't. And there are third-party products that do that, that can support things like password IDs, but I'm not sure how they'll integrate with this. I want to go back a slide because we go to a different topic after this, don't we?
Yes,
go to fault. All right, let's go back a slide. So everyone, now for all of you that are admins, you should be paying attention and this is where you should be watching for a second. So we talk about QoS, so it's also a server task that runs server Windows. Remember the name of it? Is it just QoS knew what it was a second ago. My mind. Yeah, QoS probe. If you want to load it
Yes.
as a task, you can. The probe intervals. Now, one of the things you brought up, and I've been digging and playing around with this a bunch, is trying to figure out how to best utilize this. Mainly when you have distributed environment. One thing we didn't list, first of all, is that it can send email through an external SMTP server. So you can send mail to admins. You can point to the SMTP server, things like that. You can attach logs with the QoS report. So you're able to send those out, which is good. There's no way to really reconcile the data. It's not like a viewer where I could see a history of QoS. You'd have to do it manually is what I guess I'm getting to. There's no good reporting infrastructure for it yet to see a long term. Also, the apps timeout, I believe, and I've read enough, and I haven't got it to work every time. I don't know why, but it's a long-running operation timeout for things like compact fix-up, backup, DB purge, things like that. And then there's the smart kill feature, right? And that's what kills it after a certain amount of time, is what they're calling it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But you can set, it's disabled by default, I believe, but you can set a QoS quality of service no kill. So it won't run the smart kill, but it'll still give you the quality of service, the rest of the stuff for the probing. I believe the default is that smart kill is on, and you can turn it off so it doesn't kill your server, but you can still get the quality of service reporting. That's all I can add, Gab. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
But there's a lot to it. That as an admin, there's a lot of tweaking, like you brought up. Are the polls the right times? Is it too quick? Is it too slow? Whatever it is, but there's a lot of tweaking you can do inside of these, and there's a lot of any variables. And what sucks, once again, is they haven't given us a good interface inside the server docs for it.
That's the biggest problem I have. If you walk onto a site and take over as a Domino admin, all of this configuration is buried in INI files on the file system. It's not something that you're going to see through the Domino administrator interface or the server console, and that bothers me. I like a common interface. I like a common place to see things. So it's another thing to add to the list of things to look for.
And honestly, I'm a little scared of this smart kill. I'm a little nervous about the whole idea of the smart kill and what do they consider a smart kill? What will that do? And you said don't run it on a server that doesn't have transaction logs, but on a large environment with a large amount of data, what would that do with startup and consistency checks?
Yeah, that's what concerns me.
Good. So we all agree on that one. I don't know about Paul yet.
Yeah. No, it's going to have to be a very subjective deployment, which means you're going to have a very well documented and tested deployment. It's how smart will smart kill be? Like if it was smart enough where it took baselines of startup times of the server to kind of recommend a smart kill time over a period of time, then it would be, in my opinion, a smart kill. But it probably, it doesn't do that. So it's basing itself out of the box, and then people are going to change it, and it could end up inadvertently bringing the server down where there's no requirement.
Yep.
Although,
go ahead, Gab.
I have to say, to end on a high note, I think it's very clever, and I think deployed correctly, I think it's going to be very useful. I know plenty of environments where servers, especially Windows 2008 environments, where servers don't shut down cleanly and end up hanging on shutdown, and I think this kind of thing will allow us to have customers schedule regular restarts of the servers more often and just generally improve server maintenance tasks. So, but it has to be deployed carefully.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. So we totally love the idea. I think there's a lot there, but we want everyone to understand there's a lot of config. It also has an output log file, a QoS control by date and time. And the last thing that I found humorous inside of their documentation when I was reading it, which I haven't understood what it means, is they refer to hygienic server restarts. So I don't know if it gives your server a bath or, I'm not sure what it does, but hygienic server restarts was listed in the documentation. Either of you? No? Hygienic server restarts?
I'd use the word clean.
Yes, I know, but
yeah, but you can picture four consultants were brought in for a meeting, and they said the word clean was too simple.
Yeah, it was yes, there you go. Is that what it was? Clean was too simple. I think it was in the original beta docs. I don't know if it's clean now, but it's hygienic. All right, off we go. Next topic, because we're good. We're doing good on time. Okay.
Fantastic. All right, I will slow down then. Okay, so the next new feature that I really like with Domino 9 is the enhanced fault reporting. And basically, they've done two things. They've modified the fault analyzer, and they've changed the design of the database. So if you're not running fault reporting in your environment, you really should be. What fault reporting does, it creates a default database called LNDFR on the server, and every time the server crashes or generates an NSD, or any service in your environment crash generate an NSD, they're going to mail into this database. So what you end up with in the database is a list of all crashes by operating system, by server version, so you can start to see if there's any pattern. If you're not using fault reporting, I really recommend you turn it on. You can, via security policy, also turn, actually desktop policy I think, also turn on Notes client fault reporting, so when the client machines crash or stall, they will mail in the background without the client realizing the fault report to this database, which is really cool. So if you, say, for example, roll out a new app or you introduce a new patch from a CAFE, for example, and it starts causing clients to crash, what you'll end up with is a single database on your server that has all the clients that are crashing and what operating systems they're running and what caused the crash. So you're able to see patterns of behavior, and you're not relying on people calling the help desk to report there was a problem. So fault reporting, even pre-version 9, is very cool. There is a setting for ask the users what they were doing at the point of the crash, which you can enable. I really recommend, I try not to enable that. The single thing that annoys the users the most after their Notes client has crashed is the Notes client not letting them back in until you tell them what you did to make it crash.
I would like to point out I enabled that here internally, and I used to use it in demos, and I have a few of the, we're all tech here. That's all we do is IT, and they would say things like, I was just trying to do email.
Yeah. Well, I know what I type in the Windows of Windows 2008 when I go to shut it down and it asks me why.
Right.
But it's not a terribly useful list of things. So, what have they improved in Domino 9? So they've introduced a new function called by disposition view. And when they do so as the NSD comes in, it's actually analyzed as it reaches the database. So the analysis now includes a categorization for disposition. And disposition falls into one of 5 values: problem, a possible actionable problem, a problem that is likely not actionable, informational, and unknown. So you can see that's quite cool. If we've got a possible actionable problem, it's something you might be able to deal with yourself versus a problem that's listed as not actionable, in which case you know not to spend your time trying to get to the bottom of it necessarily, or not spend too much time on it. So there are, in the documentation, which I haven't got in here, there are tables and tables of what falls under each category, but there are a few I've picked out which I think demonstrate how cool this is and how useful it is.
Next
go
slide.
to the next slide? Yeah.
That's what I figured. Okay.
Thank you. So one is, under possible problem actionable, we have out of memory. So an NSD caused by an out of memory issue will actually be logged as an out of memory issue. And it represents a crash in which the JVM ran out of memory resource, such as heap space, XPage's app. So that's going to log for you. There are 3 more, which I really like, because one of the big problems as an administrator is people will tell you that its client is misbehaving, or it's crashing, or it's hung, but you don't quite know what's going on unless you come and look over someone's shoulder and you go, oh, that's what you're doing. So there are 3 things under possible problem actionable which would save me weeks of troubleshooting trying to work out what's going on. One is the user launched multiple instances of Notes. So they clicked on it, it didn't launch quickly enough, so they clicked on it again. That tells me 2 pieces of information. One, it tells me Notes isn't launching quickly enough for the users, and maybe we need to have some of it preloaded, or they need to have a look at the speed of their machine.
So let me ask you right there. A lot of people see that option. Do you recommend preloading? That's an option when you guys do. We do installs. If the admins haven't seen it, do you recommend that?
For me, I always enable preloading. If they've got a Notes client and they're using it for mail, I preload.
Yeah. I was about to say exactly the same thing. If they use it for mail, it means it's probably going to be on all day.
Well, that, and the best part is now you can blame it on Windows.
Question.
Right, you can blame it on Windows now instead of Notes.
Yeah. And, Microsoft preloads stuff for Outlook, so
yes.
it's no different than what you're doing. The next one is possible hang, which means that the Notes client was actually doing something and someone got impatient. and went to Task Manager and quit the task. And that's very similar to the one beneath it, which is user kill, which is your Notes client had a white screen, which means it was doing something. It was waiting for, there was a network timeout or bottleneck, or it was waiting for something, and again, the user got fed up and closed the whole client. And I mean, these are just 4 examples of the disposition categories that fault reporting does, but you can see how powerful and useful this is. One of our big issues is reaching out to the client and understanding how to manage a client and the user experience, and if the user reports a bad experience, how to actually identify that, because the client runs separate. We can't see anything as administrators from our lofty central console. We can't see what's happening on the client. So anything that helps us understand what's happening to the client experience, understand things like, oh, why are the notes, why are the clients suddenly all hanging in this part of the business? Why are they getting like network issues in this part of the business? Oh, maybe we deployed a new switch, or maybe we upgraded something, or maybe we changed something. So anything that gives us that kind of information, I think is really powerful. So if you're pre-9 and you don't have fault recovery on, I really recommend you look at it. You might not want to deploy it for all users in a large environment, although I recommend if you roll out a new application or you roll out an operating system upgrade or something like that, you turn it on for that period. So we turn it on like we turn on message tracking, we turn it on to debug something.
You should be running it for servers.
Oh, you should always be running it for servers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't run it for every client in your environment unless you know of a problem. But,
well, and you need to know is that it doesn't have an alerting mechanism in it, meaning you have to go and visit this database to see a trend. And it'd be nice if there was an alert, but if you haven't visited the database, you should go in and visit every so often to see if there's a trend building in your environment based upon maybe a recent change you made or an app or a policy like Gav said, because it doesn't tell you, it's not like a DDM. It's not going to tell you through an email or anything that something happened.
Well, you could have because it mails into fault recovery, so you could have that mail-in trigger out. But yeah, it doesn't do it by default, and it's a really because if anyone's opened an NSD and tried to read it, I mean, sometimes I can get lucky, but it is like looking through the matrix.
Yes.
Try as they might, it's not designed for us to look at. So the fact that they're expending some energy in analyzing the NSD and categorizing it for us, I think is very cool. And these are key things. I mean, out-of-memory issues have been an issue, I'm sorry to say, ever since, XPage's app started. And before that as well, but in my experience nowadays, the finger points firmly usually at something on the development side. It helps to be able to identify this stuff very quickly, because otherwise, where people start, people want to first, well, let's patch release, or let's put a hotfix on, let's try more Note settings, let's try an upgrade. And it's guesses in the dark and hope the problem will fix itself. So this is really cool.
All right, let's jump to the next one. We got this. I know the next one's a big topic.
Okay.
You ready?
I'll speed up. Yes.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And if anyone has questions, remember, put the questions in the side. We've been answering them as we go. But no, you don't have to speed up. We're on time. I just want to make sure the next one I know is a big one, and we should have questions on it. People hopefully do. The new management tools.
Okay, I'll swap this around. So the database management tool, it basically replaces the updoor task. It also replaces your regular compact. The DBMT runs a few tasks. It runs a copy style compact. It purges deletion stubs. It expires soft deleted entries, which is something updoor does. It updates views, including critical views in things like your mail file. So it will update the inbox, your sent folder, the views that if you fail over to a cluster mate that you don't normally go to, you don't then have to wait for it to build the view because no one's ever been there. It merges full text indexes, so it's all the key management things you need to do. You can actually take out the nightly compact or the nightly updoor from your tasks and replace it with this. You can still run updoor, but if you run it, you can use the no DBMT switch, which tells updoor not to bother doing things like expiring soft deleted entries because the DBMT tool is running and has already done that for it. So then updoor can just concentrate on doing the view builds that it needs to do and the index updates. So DBMT is very cool because one of the issues we've got is as data has grown bigger and bigger and bigger, databases have grown bigger and bigger and bigger, our database management window has just shrunk. And in 8.5.2, we have the ability to run multi-threaded compacts. So we can have multiple compact tasks running at the same time, running against different databases, and that really helps. But this is even more efficiency. So they're basically, that window we usually have overnight of non-peak time, it's very difficult to get through all the maintenance you need to do on a database in that window. Larger companies, it's difficult to get through that in a weekend. So to talk a little bit more about what DBMT does, we go to the next slide.
Yep. Yeah, well, let's can I ask you one question first so we can get a consensus? Between all three of us, I think we should, is that this would be part of your migration to 9 strategy, is deploying this inside your server architecture, meaning, you know, as you're upgrading your servers, you should plan on converting the way you handle updall and using this new tool.
Oh, I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, more than that. I mean, I used to say that the out-of-office service was the single biggest reason to go to version 8. This, to me, as a Domino administrator, is the single biggest reason to upgrade my servers to Domino 9.
Yeah, and that's what we want our admins to know is that, you know, a lot of this stuff is not turned on by default or it's not configured. It's there. Some things now are becoming more default, we know. But this is one of those tools that you need to put into your plan to actually turn on. And I'll let Gab see all this. We'll go to the config side.
Okay, so you actually enable it via a program document. So you're going to do load DBMT. There are various parameters you can pass it. You can run it from the server console as well, but you'd usually do it on a program document. And you can specify the number of compact threads it can actually utilize. So if you imagine, if you run this, say, weekly on a Sunday when you think the servers are going to be less busy, you can then throw server resources at it to get all this done in a shorter time span. So you can say, you know, give it 5 compact threads, give it a number of updall threads, and updall threads separate from full-text indexing threads. So the updall threads are going to do the view updates and the soft deletions and all of that, and the full-text index threads are going to rebuild the full-text indexes. So what you don't have, we had the ability to spawn a separate thread for full-text indexing when we did updall. We already had that for our Nights setting, but now we know that we can run this and allocate different numbers of threads to make sure all of this maintenance work is actually done. There's also a feature called time limit, which is a compact timeout. So if you're in an environment where people have got a 20, 30, 40 gig mail file, and I have customers with those, you can actually say, do not get hung up on compacting a single database for longer than X period of time. Because you hit the 80-20 rule, you hit the point where 20% of the databases are taking up 80% of the resource and the time to maintain.
Yep.
So that's a good feature. There's also a range start time and stop time where you can say what it can start at, say, 2 a.m., but it has to be stopped by 2 p.m. You can say run the full-text index only every X number of days and run compact only every X number of days. So if you wanted to have this as a daily program document, you could tell it not to run compact and not to run full-text indexing every day, just to run it every X number of days. And there's a parameter that says force it to run on a particular day if compact fails for consecutive days. So if the compact doesn't complete on a database, you can force that to run on a particular day. It will ignore the other parameters and run the compact regardless. So we've got several things going on here. One, we're no longer running multiple tasks. Now, I've come across customers where they run fix-up nightly, and I am dead set against running fix-up as part of the schedule. So before, if someone was going to ask what about fix-up, I think this is a big sign that fix-up is not something you should be running as your regular maintenance. Fix-up is one of my last ports of call after other things don't work, like compact and updall and things like that. So firstly, we don't need to run the nightly compact. We don't need to run the nightly updall. This is a lot smarter. It can utilize more resources. You can manipulate it by adding more threads to it and monitoring it over time. And you can run it at times when you know the servers are busy. And it will do the maintenance things that are needed. So I think DBMT is incredible, new powerful feature with Domino 9. It's right up there with DDM. And I would, you know, for me, it's a great solution to a lot of customers who've been struggling on how to do good compacts and how to do good updalls and full-text index updates.
Now, Couple things. We have a question, and one thing we should mention is you said it when you were talking about the top of the slide, is using things like program docs, and Domino 9 introduced groups and wildcard program docs. So now you can actually do all your servers under one program document, which is also something you should be looking at putting in there. I have a blog post on it for those who are looking for it, but simple it is they've said now wildcard, or if you have an existing group you're already using for things for the servers like mail servers or whatever, you can have a program doc so all of them are affected the same way, and then now you can start using these type of parameters inside of it.
Yeah, I've just realized something, and
yeah.
Someone asked about purging deletion stubs
Good.
and causing old documents to come back, and I've just realized we didn't talk about perk on this. So I'm going to throw it to Paul to talk about perk and
Sure.
the fact that.
And you know what, Paul, here's what we'll do so everybody knows. While Paul's talking about perk, I will let you do the next, the only quick other poll we have, since there's no slide for perk. So Paul, while you talk about it, we'll go ahead and share the other survey real quick.
Sure. Well, perk is one of those features that we talk about, like what's a driving feature to upgrade. But from 8.5.3 on, you have a new property feature you can enable called Purge Interval Replication Control, which you can set to define that a Notes database will refuse to accept documents over a certain age. So it prevents ghosted historical documents returning back into a Notes database. It also logs it on the console. So what's your use case for this? It's a use case I see at least a couple of times a month, where somebody turns on a client or a server that hasn't replicated in a long, long time, and it replicates, and it brings back documents or screws up groups in the directory that were modified a long time ago. So perk is a feature it is 8.5.3 or higher, obviously in 9, but it's a driving factor for me as an administrator to upgrade anyway. It's a great utility to turn on.
Yeah, and I think it's perk, I think, is really good, and you can actually enable replication, issue a replication command that says no perk. So you can override it for an individual replication if you want to, and you can turn it on a database by database instance. So it fixes the recurring problem that has haunted companies for a lot of years, where suddenly an old version of your Domino directory comes back from the dead.
Excellent. So we just did the poll while Paul did. That was perfect timing. So a few people have already upgraded. Some aren't even sure, but most people are going to be doing it within the next 6 months, and I know a lot of it's planning and everything else. But it's just interesting to see the stats of how fast people are moving. If you have 20% of people saying the next 2 months, that's pretty big. That's a big move. So I will.
Quite a testament to 2.0 as well, to be quite honest.
Correct. Correct. Okay. Back we go to the presentation side, and we have 15 minutes left, and we have 3 slides. We can do this. Are you ready? Off we go.
Yeah. These are little things based on a presentation I gave before and a chat with Gab, where myself and Gab would not be known as people who do much on the end user side of things. We are not the people that know all the cool new features and tricks. So we went through in beta and in the production, just what are the things in the mail client and the notes client that that we think are pretty okay. None of the wacky stuff. Just what are things that make our lives a little bit easier.
Right.
First of all, obviously you've got a message grouping today, yesterday, last week. The entire grouping and sorting of mail in 9 is nicer. It's more modern, it looks better, it's easier to use. I've seen that in custom mail templates for years. Now it's just in the default one. Snippets is directly taken from Google Apps. It's a feature where you can enable as a preference, which will show you the summary of the first line or 2 of the email message in your view. So if you're in your inbox view, you will see in the bold text the subject line, and then in a slightly fainter text, the first line of text of the message itself.
I think that's really interesting, Paul, because I think it's something they've stolen from mobile mail clients as well. And I think some of the stuff that people really like on their mobile client is starting to make its way back into the desktop client.
Right.
Yeah, it's just an obvious feature. It's just, I'm pretty sure Gmail were the first guys to do it, but it's just such a good use case feature. Like there isn't a mail system in the world that doesn't take ideas and inspiration from other mail systems. So as long as the good ones are coming in, it's great to see. reply all from your sent view. So if I want to do a reply all in my sent view, I can do that now. And the beautiful thing about reply all now is it now removes your name. So if you reply all to an email message, you don't get a copy of it sent to yourself. The new quick find features as well. If you do a Control F in your inbox folder, you can search by column. You can choose the appropriate column and choose factors around that column. So again, the idea of finding your mail is very good. Also, I don't think I have it in these slides, is you can, using your default search in the top right side of the Notes client, you can search your mail and your archive simultaneously.
Yep. Yeah.
The sticky auto sort of mail, it's a preference you can enable that your no matter what sorting you're doing, your new mail will appear on the top or the bottom of the screen. So it will always revert back to that no matter what you do. Next slide, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, and if anyone wanted to see it here, I'll slide it across. You talk about the grouping by date ranges on there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There it is. I'll show everybody the exactly. So there you can see the grouping. So this is, today, yesterday, rest of week. What's interesting is in the inbox itself, instead of having yesterday's date next to the message, it says the word yesterday.
Now, before you go away, Chris, can you just show something? Can you just start typing anything so we can see that dialogue?
Yes, I can.
Anything at all. Okay, so what you can see on that find dialogue, can you see at the top it says find in?
I'll bring it in more. Sorry about that. There you go.
Sorry. Chris can actually do a drop down on that find in. So it's defaulted to who, but you've got that nice one there that says any column. So you can actually type anything and tell it to find it in any column in a view.
Yep.
I just think it's really good. I use this to death. Someone just asked if you needed full text indexing for this. You don't.
Nope.
This is about view sorting, so I think it's a really nice new feature. I'm using this a lot.
That said, just for anyone to ask that, you should always have full text indexing enabled on mail files, and you can move your full text indexes to separate drives, separate arrays. They don't have to be an expensive disk anymore. Your full text indexes do not have to be under the NSF. There's an ini-file parameter now that you can enable, and you can put them somewhere else. So there's no real reason why you should not have full text indexing. You don't even have to back them up.
No, and the other point is, even if you think you don't have full text indexing, that doesn't mean your users aren't searching. They just think note searching is terrible, because the default with Domino, unless you tell it not to, if someone tries to search a database that isn't indexed, the server will try and create an on-the-fly index and return results. So two things happen. One, the server is being forced to assign resources to create an on-the-fly index, and the second one is the on-the-fly index isn't very good. So the search results people get aren't very good. So that's when you have people saying to you, note search is horrible. And then I go and look, and I say, well, your mail file isn't full text index. How are you searching? And it's, well, I just search. So there is a note in this setting called for turning off on the fly indexing. I'm with Paul. Full text indexing is an incredible, powerful feature of Notes, which a lot of other clients do not have. Turn it on. If you absolutely cannot turn it on for disk-based reasons, then turn off on the fly indexing. Don't sit in this middle ground.
Now, keep in mind, one thing I noticed is when you go in and you actually start sorting by these, it actually resorts your inbox at the same time. So when I click who, it sorts by who. Subject, it sorts by subject. So keep that in mind. As when you click these, your inbox will start resorting itself as well.
But I just click on the date button and it sorts itself back again.
Oh it's fine. But so you don't get shocked when you look at your screen. It'll start.
So true.
And then actually when you click date, this is what it does to your inbox. As soon as I click date, it actually brings it back to that view.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Is it'll actually bring you back to your default date view, which is the collapse and stuff like that. So we'll get rid of that one. We have some questions that came in too.
Oh, okay. Do you want to just do the questions? Well, actually, just before you do the questions, Chris, just to bang on that point about full text indexing, I have two nieces that work in companies that use Lotus Notes. And when I didn't even know they use Lotus Notes, I think it was until Christmas just gone, seeing their Notes client, they hated Notes because they couldn't find anything. And neither of them had full text indexing enabled. I just enabled them on their local replicas or the mail files. And they just can't understand it. They never had it before. It is a no-brainer business feature to enable. I completely empathize with places saying I couldn't enable it because I didn't have the disk space. But you don't need to back them up. Put some cheap disks on the box, or get some cheap disk array for the SAN, and just build your full text indexes off them. Don't back them up. Don't worry about them. No data is in there. if that is an issue with backup windows. But a non-full text indexed mail file, it brings you on to a hiding for no reason at all from your business, because every product can do searching of mail, but like Notes is really good at it as long as that's enabled.
Excellent. Are you ready for the next page, or?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
No, I just want to make sure, because I know there's more. Okay.
Other little features that we liked, if you can click on multiple people in a view in your mail file, and you can right-click and add sender to contacts. So you can add multiple users to your contacts at once. You reply all, as I mentioned already, removes own name. You can, the search scoping on the top right screen, you can modify it, you can change what gets searched. And as I didn't mention as well, is when you're doing a reply to a mail message now, if you click on reply, it will close the original mail message. So you're not going back to the mail message that you sent.
That's a preference, though.
Yeah, sorry, it's a preference you can enable.
Yeah, people should be aware that that's something to turn on and off. It isn't the default, because that will make some users mad. And the funny one is reply all removing your own name. Well, some users will get mad because they're so used to using that as to then folder and sort things. So
yeah, it's not for me. It drives me insane. So I'm so happy that's in.
The other thing which I didn't realize, well, I don't know when it came in, is if you're blind copied on something, you can't reply to it, which I discovered the other day when I didn't realize I was blind copied on something and I tried to do a reply all. You actually can't.
Right.
I did not know that.
Isn't that cool? So, which has always been my big fear in blind copying people on things.
Yeah, it's not a feature I use nor do I promote, but I'm sure there are businesses that still use it quite a bit. But I did not know that worked like that, which is good. That is good news.
Right. Now, we did have one question that we'll answer real quick, is if people use local replicas, do the full text indexes need to be there? Go ahead, Gab.
Yeah, I was just typing out that, which is, yeah, if you use local replicas and use local replicas exclusively, then you can just create the full text index on the local replica. If you're using managed replicas, so the users are sent to the local replica, you can just do that. But if they're ever going to fail over, or they're going to use a server replica in the office and only the local replica when they're traveling, then you need it on both databases.
Excellent. All right, and we have one more slide, I think, here. Yeah, we do. One more. All right. There we go.
Just a few other features that we found useful. There's a weekly planner view now in the calendar, which is a bit of a throwback to old days. It's very good.
Agenda.
Yes. The rolling calendar as well. You now no longer have to click from month to month in your calendar. You scroll down, it just continues to scroll to the following week and to the following week. So as opposed to clicking left and right going from March to April to May, you can just scroll week by week in your month.
I'm curious how many people, this is funny you bring this, why you're saying, Paul, is how many people remember the days, not only this, about, like you said, the scrolling and everything, but agenda. The biggest deal back in the day before we had all the tablets and smartphones was the way you could print your calendar. Trifold, all the cool ways you could print, and now we're back to, oh, we just need a good view in our mailbox.
All this has happened before and will happen again. The whole scrolling, the calendar weekly scrolling, if you work in project land like myself and Gab, and you, Chris, you don't care about next month. You care about, it's a 6-week project. You want to see it all in the calendar and where you are and what you're going to be doing. You don't care about start and end dates. This is a really nice feature. The check calendar, check schedule option is now resizable, as opposed to getting a tiny little window and trying to figure out what it said in that window. You can now drag it and make it bigger. The notifiers now slide in from the right-hand side as opposed to pop-ups. And there's a few default features enabled in the calendaring as well, like ghosting. Invitations will now appear in your calendar ghosted by default. You can disable it, but by default it's on. And meeting updates, certain types of updates are now auto-processed. For example, if you have a 5-person meeting and you add a person, or they change something very minimal in the meeting, that'll auto-process for you as opposed to asking you to accept it. Now, obviously, significant changes in meetings, you'll get an update and you'll have to accept.
Now, with this, so people understand, this isn't just running the 9 template on your mail file, it's the 9 server.
Yeah.
Right. But so they know, some people are already running the 9 template, and they're still going to run an 8.5 server temporarily. As they see, you'll see some of the features, but not everything until the server goes to the 9 code.
Okay. Another default is your contacts synchronizing with your hidden contacts view in your mail file. Again, that is nothing but a good thing. There are still plenty of people and plenty of sites who have no backup of their local address book with all their local contacts. unless they're using an old configuration of Bez or they're actually actively using Traveler or iNotes. The idea now that your personal contacts are now getting synchronized in the back end on schedule with your mail file is only a good thing. So you have a backup, to say the least, but also if you switch into iNotes, you have some synchronicity between the contacts in your local notes client and the contacts in your iNotes file as well. Another very useful feature for large sites is if your fields are populated correctly in your directory, the job title is displayed in type ahead. So if I'm typing in Gabriella and there's, say, 5 Gab Davises in the company, at least the job titles of those particular people will pop up to the right-hand side. So you can quickly identify the person that you're trying to communicate with.
Amazing.
They're little things. They're just the little things that I like about it in using it at the moment. They're the things that kind of make my life a little bit easier. I know there is many, many more, but they're just the things that I find useful as not a very heavy power note user. I'm just for mail and a few applications.
Excellent. So we have a couple questions coming in. So everybody knows you have about 4 minutes to fire questions in before we close up and say our goodbyes. First one, what is this one? How do you customize the new shortcut button bar? That it should be possible, the shortcut button bar.
I think, now I could be wrong on this, but I think that's going to be in 901.
Yeah.
I think the new shortcut button bar, they didn't make it customizable in 9.0. Yeah. If I'm wrong, I'll put my hand up, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's not available yet.
I would second that. I believe that it was supposed to be there in the first one, and they didn't make it. Also, everyone should be aware of inside the client itself. You know what, if I collapse this real quick, let me do this so everyone can see. One thing I do and don't like about it, and we'll bring this across, is the new Discover page that's there while people ask questions. Oh, wait, someone says it's available now. We'll look real quick. But the idea is that you now have this for the users, things like what's new and things like that. And one thing I do and don't like is cool. You can see about new features and you can, see things that are new in the Notes 9 client for users. The downside, I'm on the what's new page. I'm on what's mail. Inbox, just start typing. They put no links to get to your inbox. Meaning I just read about it, I just learned about it, but I can't get to it. So you may look at customizing this a little bit further than what they gave you. It was just an interesting thing that I caught. We put it in the forums. It just didn't get picked up yet.
Actually, Chris, while it's on screen there, you may, for people that don't know, just show them the shortcut bar, just so they know what we are talking about.
Talking about this one?
No, up above.
Oh, this one. Sorry, I'm sorry, the black one. Okay, yeah. So mail, and actually it was said in there that under view shows shortcut buttons, is what he's saying. But, well, yeah, but he's saying about customizing these was the question. Can I add more to these than just the ones that are showing?
I'm pretty sure it's a 901 feature. I know it's been discussed. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in the notes.
Right, I haven't seen it. Anything besides these, 7 of them or so that are here. These are the ones that you can turn on and off, and it, be policy controlled, yes, but the ability to customize is what I think the first question was, and no, there's no adding of additional icons on here, and yeah, you're right, I do remember reading that they're going to push it out later on, so you can add directly to an application or to something else. I
did see it. I actually saw a specific note saying 901. I just don't remember where it was. Interesting little tidbit about that shortcut bar. That was invented on the fly in about 2 hours, about the day before the Leadership Alliance conference. One of the developers just thought about it and showed it to Scott Soder. I said, well, what if we put a bar up here? And then they all thought it was pretty cool because the bar was there anyway for the open button. So they started just placing little shortcuts along the top.
And the beautiful part,
lovely feature.
Well, you bring it up. The beautiful part of it is if they do make it customizable, you'll be able to go directly to specific high-end applications, maybe that the user should have, things like that.
Yep, absolutely. Like business continuity apps, emergency apps, most critical apps, all along the top.
So we're at the end. One thing we didn't cover, and Paul, you mentioned that we didn't get into, was like the credential store and the OAuth. We mentioned it in a slide. I think
we need 3 hours for that, Chris.
Actually, you're pretty darn close. You're pretty darn close. We'll maybe I think they're going to end up with a separate webcast on that. Honestly, if Gab, you guys want to be part, but I think it's going to have to be separate. It is a good solid hour if we just consolidate it.
And it may be worthwhile doing that combined with a SAML and talking about the SAML stuff because that's a big chunk as well.
Okay. And if you're interested, I put down in the chat section, everyone can see, there's the email address. If you send it into events@consultantinyourpocket.com, let us know topics you want to see. So, Gab, tell them where they can find you.
Oh, yes. You can email me, gabriel@turtlepartnership.com. You can find me as Gabriel Davis on Skype. You can follow me on Twitter @GabTurtle. I have a blog, which I'm working really hard to update more, at blog@turtleweb.com. And I am still co-authoring Connections101.net with Mr. Mooney, which we've just brought up to version 4, just in time for IBM to release 4.5 today. So we'll be bringing that up to date and extending that as we go on. I think that's it. Oh, also at user groups and conferences like the View, and unfortunately not IAMLUG. I will be at the, Norwegian user group and at Social Connections at the end of June, and the UK Lotus user group in September.
Excellent. Paul?
If you go to pmooney.net, my website, you'll be able to find pretty much every way to contact me under the About Me link. I'm available on Twitter, on the blog, on Connections101 with Gab, and at bluewavegroup.eu for our corporate site and what we do for the day job.
The day job. Mine is easy, at I Do Notes everywhere. On everything you'll see me, of course, we're running IAMLUG in a few weeks. If you're in the U.S. or Canada or Mexico, or heck, if you're in the U.K., we got people coming. You haven't signed up. There's a few seats left. The sessions are listed and available at iamlug.org. We got that. I'll be at the View conference with Gab, which is in just, 2-3 weeks? Oh, shoo. It is coming up quick.
Yeah. That
one's coming up quick. After that, I plan on joining Mr. Mooney over there with some of them, and I might be at Social Connections. They asked me at BLUG, and I'm up the question. So this was recorded for everybody. It'll be online. It's on the YouTube playlist. You can subscribe there. It'll be on consultinyourpocket.com. You can actually view it there. Either you two, anything else to add, because we're on time? No?
I don't think so. I had, our last page said, now go out and upgrade your servers.
It's on there now. Yep.
Is it? Good.
Yep. It says go install it now. That screen has been up for a minute, so everyone, you should be installing. Please build into your plans a lot of the new tools that we showed you on the admin side. It isn't everything. If you read our blogs for more, I've had a few posts of cool stuff. Paul's had some posts. We're uncovering new little things. They sneak in all the time. But if you have questions, email, tweet us, do whatever you want to do. But you'll be able to watch the replay later on. And I want to say thank you to you two if you want to hang around. Everyone else, I will be ending the webcast, and we will schedule the next one. And it looks like we're going to have one on the credential store and also one for developers, because I'm